Good afternoon, Scott Baker, Emily Blackburn. Good to have you both with us.
Hi.
Glad to be here. I'm glad to be here. Happy to be here. I don't know. This might get a little weird because the title of the field note is "Does your team have competitive joy?" And I don't think that means the team is sitting there going like, "I'm more joyful than you are." I'm more like it sounds like competitive joy seems like it's just something that shouldn't be, right?
No, I don't think that's what it means. That's really funny
Is it?
though. I did
Okay.
I didn't think that point of view
It's a
would
way
come
that
up.
some people could have taken it. But now
Yeah.
Emily's a generally joyful person, so this should go well. Um, now I think that you could look at this and say the if you could think about it, you notice that there are some teams, sports teams, organizations where when the stakes are high, there's a team that just seems lighter, right? And
Mhm.
then you see teams where they just seem tighter. It gets like really intense. How can you be like those people, right? Isn't that what we're talking about?
Yeah. And I think to take a page out of the Admired Leadership book, it's focusing on the behaviors, focusing on the process and the how you get there, not on the final game, not on the outcome.
Hmm.
I think too often we focus on the misses and the hits versus the swings themselves. And I think by
Mm.
perfecting the swings and finding joy and getting better and raising your standards of excellence in the action themselves, that's going to make your outcomes better, right? Because you're getting better
Hmm.
at behaviors and you find the joy in the process.
Hmm. Well, in some ways, that could be the purpose of work. And I know that sounds weird. And Mikey heard me tell the story once from a while ago. But a long time ago, when I was a young reporter in Erie, Pennsylvania, there was a conference, and it was sort of like an industrial gathering of something. And I was interested because there was a guy speaking, and his name was W. Edwards Deming. And he was what they called the father of total quality management. Now, this was a big deal back in the 70s because a lot of the Japanese car companies adopted his ideas around manufacturing. And so there were Deming prizes, there probably still are. And I think he was in his like 90s at that point, and I think he actually died a year or two later. And I kind of thought, well, I want to go meet this guy, interview him. And so I took a camera crew. Like nobody at a television station in Erie, Pennsylvania were like, let's go talk to the really, really old guy who talks about quality management. But I dragged a guy over there. Now, the benefit to me was Stephen Covey was there too and hanging around, and I got to talk to Covey for a long time. But my one question to W. Edwards Deming, this guy that had studied work and workforces and all of this, was what is the purpose of work? And this guy who could barely hear and who was just kind of stood there and he just stared at me for a while and he looked down and then he just said, joy, which was absolutely not the answer that I was expecting to hear from W. Edwards Deming.
Yeah.
But if you contemplated that for a while, it could transform your life, right?
Hmm. No, it's kind of
No?
funny when you contemplate it and where you contemplate it and when it actually shows up
Mhm.
makes a big difference. And so weirdly, the place where it shows up for me more than ever is when I'm teaching other people to play a board game,
Okay.
right? Because we wonder whether or not we should start being competitive immediately. We
Hmm.
wonder whether or not on this first play, if all the rules apply. We wonder whether or not in this first time that we play the game, are we like full on competitive or is this just a teaching learning mode? And you have to like say those things out loud to both kids and adults when you're teaching them a board game.
Wait.
Otherwise,
What
people
board game
kind
are
of
we
get
talking
off.
about? Are we talking about Shoots and Ladders here? I need some context.
Are we
Any
all on
board
the
game.
same team, Mikey, or are we going
Right.
against each other?
Exactly, right? So I recently taught a game to our firm where I didn't disclose whether or not it was one big team or not. But
Mm.
if we're going to have this as a analogy, the board game is Carcassonne, which is a fun game. If you've never heard of Carcassonne, you should go out and get it. And I'd be happy to teach it to you. But the first time we play through Carcassonne, it will be as if I'm mentoring you through the entire game, putting both your hat on and my hat on as I make
Okay.
moves. And I will talk through the entire game. And I probably won't allow you to make independent strategy moves that first time around because I think I'll just want it to just be out there as we tell a story. And then the second time we play it, I'll draw back a little bit more and say, now I'm not going to tell you what moves to make. You have to make them on your own now that you kind of understand where all the pieces and how they all work.
Mhm.
And so slowly you start to adopt strategy, but it allows it to become fun for you. What I want more
Fun.
than anything when I'm teaching Carcassonne is for you to enjoy it to the point where you love it as much as I love it.
As
Like
you-
I
okay.
really want you to
Let's-
love it.
Okay, pause here for a second. Emily, have you ever heard of this game that Mike's
Not a
talking about?
clue what he's talking about, Scott.
Game of the year
Do you-
2001
no,
out
Mikey,
of Germany.
Mikey, do we think, Emily, do we think that Mikey's just making this up? Is this part of one of these other constructs that he's created some fictional world?
You
There will
said-
be people in the chat who will be upset at you for not even being aware of what Carcassonne is.
Carcassonne, it sounds like some cannibal game, doesn't it? It's like, I don't even, are zombies involved in this game?
It's wonderful.
All right, Mikey's back in the conversation.
Yes.
All right, so we're getting through the chore of learning the thing. And then once we've got it down, then we can start entering into this process of joy, right? So bring the Carcassonne lesson back to the field note for us, Mikey. How do we as organizations, teams, groups of people find the joy through the lens of your zombie flesh-eating game?
Yeah. So when you're teaching any game at all, you allow the first rounds to be falling in love with it. If you're going to do it right, if you're teaching board games correctly, right? And somewhere along the line, you say you rip off the mask of nicety and you're like, now we're going to go full bore competitive. And so what you end up doing is you kind of lose the plot. Like, what is the purposes of us playing games together is so that we have fun together. We enjoy it. And so the approach of like jumping into a game where I'm not going to explain all the rules, you just need to kind of figure them out as you go. There's no joy in that, right? There's no real fun that comes along with that. And so I think that the board game analogy is you need to stay in that learning mode for much, much longer for people to understand that they're not just on the same team in how to play a game, but they're also on the same team that the reason that we're playing is to have fun, is to enjoy this.
Yeah, and I think from a coach's perspective, Mikey, if you were to boil down that analogy a little bit, you're bearing all the hallmarks of a highly competent and effective leader, right? You're focusing on building rigor and excellence in the process and how to play the game. You're not starting the journey by saying, we've got to get you ready to win this game by the end of this, right? You're not over indexing on the outcome. You're focusing on the journey. And I think if you think about what we all enjoy doing, and it sounds like, Mikey, you enjoy this board game. When you think about the board game, you don't say, I love winning this board game. No,
Yes.
You say, I love playing this board game. And
Yes.
that's the nature of competitive joy. It is the joy in the journey, not in the outcome. And when we over index on failure versus success, that's when you get into burnout. That's when you get into work anxiety.
Absolutely right.
That's when you get into politics. And that's the no-no zone for leaders, is to not index too much on the outcome.
Well, let me ask you both about serious performance culture, which is referenced here in the field note, as opposed to competitive joy culture versus serious performance. What are the hallmarks? What does serious performance culture look like, and why does it stamp out joy so easily?
Yeah, I think a lot of leaders make the mistake of confusing intensity with grimness, right? And like dire straits, the stakes are high, it's live or die. And I think the best teams are intense while being playful, right? You think about people that have a competitive banter on an athletic field or something. They're not saying I'm gonna beat you up. They're saying, I'm going to get you this time. Right. And there's a difference. That level of tone and aggression, I think, is what can kind of make or break. And it's a fine line and it's a delicate one, but that's kind of what toes the line between serious performance culture and a highly effective, competitively joyful performance culture.
Right.
Well, and the field note is sort of driven by, there's some sports references and Pat Riley and the NBA, and we've seen other teams kind of lean in on joy in the process, and it's true. And the field note is actually trying to make the admonition to leaders you just underlined, Emily, which is if it's the outcome that is all that matters, then you're going to sap the joy, right? If it's about the process, and this is true just about anything in general, all human goals, the satisfaction is generally not the actual attainment of the goal. It's the process of moving toward that goal. It's the direction there. Now you might need to have the goal. You can't just be like randomly moving about in the universe. So the goal is important. You do want to win the game, get the contract, get your quarterly results, whatever the thing is you're moving towards. But I think what you're talking about here is, what is the thing that the true master brings to it? And that's sort of that beauty of effortlessness, right? It's the thing where it's like watching Fred Astaire dance and you're thinking, or Ginger Rogers doing exactly those same moves, but backwards, right? Mm-hmm. That's the old line. And so can you bring that to, say, the grind culture that we often hear about online these days, that's not in fact, that's sort of a recipe, I think, for misery. Because you're not actually going to have a sustainable sort of framework to get through the really hard times to get to the place if it doesn't feel like a bit of a dance.
Yeah.
The joy will get squeezed out because the stakes feel too high. Like if the stakes are super high in everything that you do, even when you win, it feels like I just dodged a bullet. So there's not joy there. It's just relief, right? And so creating scenarios where real joy can emerge is an art form, I think.
Yeah. And a lot of it hinges on how leaders frame the goal, right? So not saying if you're in product sales, for example, it's not saying this quarter, this is our number and we have got to hit this number. And I want you to do anything by any means necessary to get there. It's saying, hey, this quarter is a big one. We've got some ambitious goals. I hope we can meet them. I want us to meet them, but I want us to focus on being the most effective sales team and having the most impactful cold calls that we can have and communicating across the team. And I want us to prioritize those behaviors. And oftentimes the rest follows and the goal wins itself.
Well, let me ask you both this question. So I was noticing today, there's been a lot of talk around the firing of the Buffalo Bills coach, and the owner gave a news conference and said that part of the decision to get rid of their coach was just how awful it was in the locker room, and watching Josh Allen weeping and sobbing after this and saying, we've got to do better. We need something new. We're not getting rid of Josh. So we're going to fire the coach, I guess. So here's my question. Is in the joyful pursuit of a great prize, when you don't get it, what is the nature of sorrow and lament and sadness in this dance of competitive joy? How much of that is allowed?
Yeah. It's funny. I heard Tom Brady talking about lamenting, and just within the last couple of weeks, he was talking about feeling a loss. And he was like, I don't think you should talk on the plane ride back home. I really think that you need to feel it deeply. I think in order for you to actually learn from it in a good way, you shouldn't try to get over it very quickly.
Live with it for a little while.
Yeah. Right. And so I don't exactly know how you practice that in a way that seems joyful.
I was counting on you guys to solve that problem in 90 seconds.
Yeah. Not me.
I think if you have a team that only feels good when they're winning something, then you have a fragile team. Okay. And I think that wins or loses will come and go. I think more often than not, if you have a team that wins, unless you're maybe Tom Brady's era of the Patriots, you win once, and then a lot of times you don't deliver the second season, right? Because you've over-indexed on that win and you're so focused on getting there again that you lose sight of how you got there in the first place, right? And you can't replicate that outcome. And I think it's the same for losing. If you focus too much on losing, you just lose sight of the journey and everything that it took for you to get that far in the first place. So I think it's important, again, to focus on the journey and not over-index and not, boil the ocean on winning or losing.
Boil the ocean on it. Well, and if anybody watching live now or listening later, you can comment or go to the field note and comment there. I'd be interested in thoughts on that, because when we see a sports team lose, you don't really want to see the person going like, "Hey, that was a great game," because now that actually would be noble in some ways, right? I have seen performances where even the loser is like, "That was amazing. Like, we lost, but like, this is why I love playing this game. It's so crazy," right? But you can say, and I've heard people say, I'll give myself 24 hours to sit with the loss, and then I got to pick it back up. And we know that a leader or a coach can say to the team, we didn't win this one, but man, did we do so well at this and this and this. So part of that leadership lesson is maybe learning to let people live in the moment of the loss, but underline the things that do point to joy, that do point to the dance, and that you're setting the stage to get back in it. And I think that's part of it. Can you have that magic to acknowledge the reality of the loss, but still get everybody back into game mode?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. To take a page out of my mom's book, who's a therapist, she would appreciate the shout out whenever something's going wrong or something has gone wrong that I'm complaining about. And this was very frustrating when I was a teenager, by the way. She would always sit back and say, well, what was good about it? Or what did go well? And what can we do to make that happen again? And so now, my inner teen is rolling her eyes at now giving her credence for that advice, but it helps. And it makes sense, I think, in this context too.
Yeah. Well, let us know if your mom gets a client out of this conversation or not.
Yeah, right.
Fingers crossed.
Right. Or we can have her on next time. So.
Yeah, exactly.
She'd love it.
All right.
She'd love it.
Good to see you all. Thank you.
Thanks.